Okay, let's now move on to friendship, relationships between two people. It's very much an equal kind of relationship between two people who aren't related to each other. Well, they could. I mean, they could be potentially, but it's very much a voluntary relationship that is chosen. It's not one that's sort of foisted upon you like it is with family. So, what are the important things to bear in mind when it comes to friendship?
I mean, just as a starter, I feel that one of the poisons, a cancer, so to speak, in relationships with friends is jealousy. Jealousy can lead to hatred, especially if you're a good friend of someone. So you're in their life and they're in your life. They see your successes as well as your downfalls, and you see theirs. And if things are not going, this can easily happen. If someone is a good friend, and again, we're not talking about here about what social media called friends. That's acquaintances. We're talking about if a real friendship is developed, and we're not talking about necessarily. It doesn't have to be necessarily school friends, people you just happen to be friendly with, and therefore you stay in touch with them. And we're talking about a friendship that's nurtured and that's developed, and just as the Mishnah in Pirkei Avos says, famously quoted, "Kaneh lecha chaver," the person should acquire a friend. And a lot of the commentators discuss there that a friendship is so important for life. It's so essential for a successful life to have someone who is a real, genuine friend, who cares about you and is rooting for you and will do anything for you and loves you, that it's even worth paying for such a friend. And of course, it doesn't mean necessarily just financially, but it means investing in that relationship, whether it's time, whether it's effort, whether it's resources. A friendship is probably the most important thing that a person can put his endeavors into developing. I really feel, again, I've never done a study on this, but I wouldn't be surprised if the difference, a basic difference between successful people in life is whether they have a good friend in their life or if they don't.
Are you saying
It would
even more?
surprise me.
Are you saying even more than spouse or partner?
I mean, the truth is that an aspect we say in the Sheva Brachot when a person gets married, that there should be ava v'achva, there should be love and there should be brotherhood, shalom, peace, vareyos, and friendship. So that there should be an aspect, a dimension of friendship with a spouse. Um, there's no question. So really, we're talking about not necessarily having a friend, but nurturing a friendship. So if a person, many, yeah, so having for a wife or a husband to be a friend is crucial, is essential, but also for someone to have a friendship outside marriage, someone to speak to about their marriage or about their family. But having a friend, having friendship in one's life is an essential gift. It's really a gift. And I was saying before that the poison, the cancer, that something that can rot and chip away at true friendship is jealousy, and the mistrust that comes from that, and the hatred, because you're so much involved in someone else's life and there's so much involved in you, in your life, and it just chips away, and it's subtle. It's very subtle. It's like what we were talking before about abuse. It can just creep up on a person. And unless a person guards his, builds a fence to guard his garden, so to speak, to uproot the weeds and to be aware of what's happening. But by the way, I would say generally, it's a bit of a therapist thing to say, but I think it's important to make this point, is that in any relationship, and if a person is not self-aware, um, then it's going to be difficult for him to have a successful relationship, because there are so many subtle things that can happen, whether it's, before we were talking about employee-employee relationships, abuse happening, or whether it's in friendship, jealousy developing. These things are subtle emotions. And unless a person is aware of himself and emotionally in tune with himself, or has a level of self-awareness, then he's not going to catch himself. He's not going to be aware until it's too late. And many friendships, good friendships where people have been dedicated and loyal to each other, after years, can just end on something small. And often what's happened is that there's been a subtle build-up of mistrust or jealousy or anger or things festering that weren't dealt with. And obviously, I mean, it goes without saying, but part of a relationship is a relationship don't just happen. People have to work on their relationship. A relationship has to be maintained. A communication, and again, we're touching on things here. Each one of them is a discussion on its own. But healthy communication in any relationship is essential. Whether it's employee, whether it's spousal, parent, ability to communicate, to speak, to discuss things, to feel that there's a forum and a space where I can talk to you and you talk to me. So that there are things obviously that can be done to maintain and keep healthy relationships. But in a nutshell, I would say that the biggest, if we're talking about challenges or pitfalls of friendship, I would say that it possibly is jealousy, and to the extent where possibly it's a good idea for a friend to hold back from someone else, hold back from someone. You know, if you know your friend is going through a difficult time, to be sensitive about sharing information that the things that are happening in your life, even though you rely on him for advice or rely on her for guidance or for the support. It's not necessarily the right time. It's sensitivity. High sensitivity is needed for any successful relationship, but particularly friendships. And spousal is included in that, of course. You know, that's why one of the reasons I once heard from a divorce lawyer. I was speaking to a family lawyer, specializes in divorce, and she was telling me that at the moment, one of the biggest causes she sees for divorce is often Facebook. People have seen other people's presentation of their perfect family on holiday or whatever they're doing, just done up their house, or they're in this perfect pose. You know, if we were to see behind the scenes how many hours it took to get that perfect pose, you know, but you're seeing the perfect pose, and that creates jealousy. People see that, and it sows the seeds of upset and anger. So I would say one needs a high level of sensitivity as to what to share with his or her friend.
Yeah. I want to ask 3 specific questions about this. I hope you'll be able to remember all 3 of them. The first one is, how do you avoid having jealousy in a friendship? The second one is, how do you, what was my question? The second one was, how do you ensure that you communicate? You said communication is essential, but sometimes, and we've discussed this previously, not all communication, just saying exactly how you feel the whole time, especially if you're upset with someone or you feel like there's a disparity in terms of who's giving to who. Sometimes you have to be careful in communication. So I just wanted you to talk about, communication is important, but that doesn't mean just splurting out exactly how you feel. And then the third question was, what happens if you feel there's a disparity in the friendship, in terms of you feel like you're a lot more invested in the other person, you really like the other person, you don't think they're doing anything wrong, but you feel there's this disparity. Is that something you should bring up, or is that something you should, and how much should you push before, and if they're not reciprocating, before you just sort of give up?
I would say, I was just, in answer to all 3, I would say when there's love in the relationship, when there is what the Torah is called in this week's parasha, v'ahavta l'recha kamecha, love and rooting for their success, and real genuine care, and often as one is able to overcome these obstacles. And anti-jealousy is developing a real feeling, and in terms of communication, once a person feels love for someone else, so then they'll find a way to communicate in a way that creates harmony, and creates partnership, and doesn't negate, doesn't criticize, doesn't judge. Love is the background, and it's often overlooked. Friendships become technical. They become Again, what we're talking about with friendship is not a partnership of convenience where you help me and I help you. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. Friendship, real friendship, is one where there's real love. I care about this person. It's a story that I'm always amazed about. I'm always just I can't even get my head around it, just because it's something that we're just not used to. But it's a story of a love between two brothers, Moses and Aaron. And what's unbelievable is that God he appears to Moses in a form of a burning bush, and for almost 2 weeks, God is trying to encourage and cajole and negotiate with Moses to go and save the Jewish people. And we know that Moses cared immensely about the Jewish people. He could have lived a life of luxury in the palace, and nevertheless he steps out of the palace to feel their pain and to empathize with them. And nevertheless, he doesn't want to take on the job, doesn't want to take on this mantle of power, this mantle of leadership. And the reason is because he's so concerned about the honor of Aaron. He's afraid that Aaron's his older brother. And really this job, this role of leadership, should have been Aaron's role. And he doesn't want to hurt his brother. There was no ego here. There was no, this is about me. And me. It was just unbelievable. And what's even more amazing is that God turns around to Moses and says, don't worry. I've looked into your brother's heart, so to speak, and he knows about this, and he's very happy for you. That means there's no remnant of jealousy, of anger, of resentment in Aaron's heart. That's the sort of partnership that can be created when there's a real. I know they're brothers, but when there's fertile ground for real love and really caring about the other person, and I guess understanding, and perspective. One needs perspective to develop this. Again, I'm not saying this is an easy thing, but I really feel that the questions you asked me before about jealousy, avoiding jealousy, and communication, these are all things that when there's real love and care about the other person, rooting for their success, wanting the best for them, then things fall into place.
Absolutely. And I feel like it's so important to maintain the love when there's communication, signs, potential for hurt. The most important thing, you're right, I think you communicate love throughout, even when you're going through bumpy periods, and then it should grow. I think that's definitely been borne out in my experience of friendship. And I have to say, I find it, you're saying the importance of friendship even when you enter into marriage, and of course your spouse should be your friend as well. And I find it so difficult when I see some people who throw away friendships after they get married or whatever, they feel settled or whatever it is. And to me that it shows it wasn't really a particularly strong friendship in the first place. But I just think the whole approach of not needing friends is just naive. Sometimes at the very least it's good to have that objective outsider that can look in on your life and challenges that can guide you. And I think also the same is true of a mentor. And we're not actually devoting a section to talking about relationship between a person and a mentor, but I think that's essential as well. In that same verse that you quoted in Pirkei Avot about acquiring a friend, it also says make for yourself a mentor or a rabbi. And it's that whole thing of having that outsider's perspective that understands you, knows you, cares about you, loves you, that can offer you wisdom, guidance, discipline, maybe.
Yeah. Just on that point, I think what you bring up is a very important, insightful point. We as human beings, one of our biggest challenges is our inability to clearly see our own situation. We're so colored. Our perspective is so colored and distorted by projections, our own tendencies, whether it's selfishness or arrogance or whatever it may be. It's very difficult to see things clearly. And I think that, and again, I'm not advocating here a therapy, but someone in one's life, whether it's a rabbi or whether it's a spiritual mentor, whether it's a good friend, whether it's a spouse, I would say a successful human being is someone who has an ability to listen to other people. And it's really a hallmark of a successful relationship. We're talking about relationships here. I mean, you asked me before about what are some of the pitfalls. I would say that the major global macro pitfall in any relationship, whatever that may, is arrogance, is an inability to see things clearly and not be open to advice, not be open to direction, and not be open to someone giving what we call toichacha, which is a rebuke. It sounds a bit harsh when it's translated into English, but really it's a way of clarifying for someone that the path that they might be leading, or the decision they might be making, or the behavior they're engaged in is not the best thing for them. And I would say that if someone is arrogant to the extent that they can't be open to someone else, then they're not going to have successful relationships. A prerequisite for any relationship, any successful relationship, is a level of humility, a level of openness. And to the extent, of course, it's a spectrum. No one is fully humble, and no one is fully arrogant. But I definitely think if they were correlated to the extent that a person has arrogance, to that extent he's going to struggle with relationships, and to the extent the person has humility and is open to the perspective of other people and to hearing other people, to that extent he's going to have successful relationships. I really feel that the underlying cornerstone for a relationship, and a person to have relationships in any of these areas, is his ability to be humble and to be open. It doesn't mean he has to be a doormat that people walk on him. That's not what humility really is. But humility and openness to other people's advice, guidance, and objective opinion, because people are subjective. We human beings, we can't, existentially, we can't live life in a vacuum on our own, making our own decisions. We're so distorted, and our perspective is so colored that we can't see things clearly.
Absolutely, absolutely.
To stay up to date with JTV content, click subscribe here if you're on YouTube and hit the alarm bell. And if you're on Facebook, hit the like button, and under following, click see first. If you enjoy watching JTV content and want to help us continue to grow, please consider making a donation to us by clicking here.